Hi and welcome to Outdoor World Direct. Today we're going to take a look at the Coleman Weathermaster 6xl Blackout tent. Now this is a large family tent with a 3-zone design, so you've got a large open space to the front porch area which can be fully sealed off. You have the Sewn-in ground sheet area here which is the living space, and you also have blackout bedrooms to the rear of the tent. The blackout bedrooms help to eliminate 99% of daylight. They're very useful if you've got young children because it's easier to get them to sleep earlier and to keep them asleep for longer on those bright summer nights. So the Weathermaster's a 70 Denier Polyester tent, so this is more of an entry-level area. So it's a lighter weight fabric. It still has an inflatable design, but the lighter weight fabric just helps to retain and keep that weight lower. Some of the polycottons or the thicker fabrics, they can weigh up to 50 to 70 kilos. So with this one, it comes in at 38.4 kilos. So it is quite a manageable inflatable tent, and that's down to this 70 Denier polyester. Now, with it being a lighter weight of fabric, it probably wouldn't be quite as durable as some of the polycottons or some of the thicker fabric tents that we do. You're looking to get around 8 to 12 weeks usage out of this tent. Although that might not sound like a lot, if you actually pitched this up and just left it out for 8 to 12 weeks, that's a fair amount of time for a tent's lifetime. So if you think about how many holidays you would actually get out of that if you're using it for a week or 2 weeks at a time and up to 4 weeks a year, you know, you're probably going to get 3 years typically. You can actually enhance the lifetime by treating the fabric after a certain length of time. You can either reproof it and you can UV guard it as well. Most breakdowns of fabrics typically happen down to UV degradation, and this is the sun kind of breaking down the fabric and it becomes quite brittle. So with these entry-level 70 deniers, there's nothing wrong with this type of fabric and it's a good fabric, but sometimes after 2 years it might be a good idea to UV proof it just to give it a longer lifetime. So with this space here, this is the open front canopy to the front of the tent. It can be fully enclosed. I've zipped it halfway at the moment, or it can be zipped fully open as well to have a full open canopy. But the beauty of this is that you can zip it off if the weather's bad. So if you've got windy or wet conditions, it might be ideal just to zip this down and have this as kind of like a storage area or like an entry area into the tent without getting water into this Sewn-in ground sheet behind me here. You also have a rain-safe door to this side. So on my left side, camera's right side, there's a rain-safe access point into the living space as well. This is really useful, again, for if it's been raining, you don't want the rainwater just to drip straight into the Sewn-in ground sheet. So you've either got the side access or the front access. This is also a really useful area for storage. You can make of the space what you will, but having the ability to zip it closed is also a real game changer with our British climate that we have. So moving into the living space now, with this it's a fully sewn-in ground sheet all the way around. So this fully seals, it's going to stop the bugs, it's going to stop the drafts, that kind of thing. It also has a drop down ground sheet just to the front here. This is useful for prams and wheelchairs because you're not having to step over. It prevents a tripping hazard essentially. The downside is you do get a small gap between either side where the doors meet. So the ground sheet will meet the door and it will zip closed at the bottom as well. We've also got windows to the front here that are backed by zipped privacy curtains. These are mesh windows. So these mesh windows are really useful for allowing some ventilation into the living space. With inflatable tents, you're going to get more condensation inside them because the beams are internal inside the tent. So with that type of design, you always get condensation rising up the beams. It just depends on the weather really, but any moisture that's in the area is going to cling to these beams. So as much airflow as we can add, the better really. So this door to the front, it has a waterproof fly sheet door, and it also has a secondary mesh door, and there's a mesh panel door to my left side as well. So between the mesh windows and the 2 mesh doors, you've got plenty of ventilation into this space to help reduce condensation within this area. So that's quite useful because you've got a fully sewn-in ground sheet, so it's very difficult for the moisture to get out. So that's why we put lots of mesh in here, but it's all zippable off, so you can close it off. So if it's a cooler evening, you can close the mesh off to warm the tent up. So one of the main reasons people buy a Coleman tent, one of the best selling points of them, is the blackout bedrooms. They really offer a much darker bedroom than you're going to get from anybody else on the market. If you compare this with a Van Gogh an Outwell, an Outdoor Evolution, these bedrooms are far darker than any of those bedrooms. So to black out the bedrooms, they've kind of patented that technology, so the other guys can't do it as effectively as Coleman can. So with this bedroom, you have a large 6-person inner. It also has 2 dividers, so you can create either a 4 and a 2 format, or you can create 3 lots of 2. And it just depends how many bedrooms you want and the configuration. A lot of people tend to unzip one divider and have a 4-person and a 2-person here. Now, with this being a 6-person inner, it can sleep up to 6 people. My recommendation would typically be not to sleep more than 4 people inside this tent, because if you do, it's going to be quite cramped. So every time you see a tent and it says it's a 6-person, drop a person or 2 people out of that, and really it's ideal and it's comfortable for 4 people. So that really concludes the living space. It's a really nice airy space. You can stand up everywhere here. You've got windows, you've got mesh ventilation throughout it. It's really well spec'd inside the tent, and the standard and the quality of the ground sheet and the fact it's a fully sewn-in ground sheet makes it a really good family tent for those reasons. A lot of the other tents, they can skim out some of the features you get inside here, like the zip dividers in the bedrooms, the zipped windows, the mesh on the doors and the mesh windows. They skim those out to get the tents down to a better price point. But inside this tent, it's actually really well spec'd, and it will really help create a more comfortable camping environment. So to conclude, I think the Weathermaster is a great tent for spring to summertime, fair weather camping. It's ideal for a family of 4 or 5 people wanting a nice spacious 6-man tent. It's really versatile in terms of the living space. You've got ample living space, you know, it really is well spec'd in that regard. It's also got an inflatable design, so it's easy to pitch and it's easy to set down. It's really helpful for anyone who really wants a good family tent with a blackout bedroom. That's what this tent is designed for, and with some of the better features inside, like the zip dividers on the bedrooms and the zipped windows. It's got a couple of optional extras available. I'd recommend the footprint ground sheet. That will sit underneath the tent and it will protect the sewn-in ground sheet from accidental damage. Also, there's an optional carpet which goes in the living space just to increase the comfort and warmth inside the tent. We also we usually put in a little green tool. It's a valve tool. That's really useful for just tightening up the valves, because sometimes these air tubes, they come a bit loose. So if you see that on our website, always put an air valve tool in there as well if it's not already in on the bundle deals. Otherwise, thanks very much for watching. If you've got any comments, please drop them in the comments box.